Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Roger Bryan. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we'd like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So in this episode, we're pleased to have SEO consultant Roger Bryan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So Roger, for people that may not know, can you just tell us what an SEO consultant does?
Yes, my role is to consult with large organizations. We've worked with companies like Microsoft, MedStar, some of the largest healthcare organizations in the country. And we train their teams on how to do organic revenue generation and optimization. So we teach them SEO. We provide them with the tools and resources they need to be successful in it. And in some cases, we actually get in and do the work for some of the clients if that's what they want us to do.
Okay.
Very interesting. So I'm going to throw it.
Go ahead.
So I know there's so much regarding SEO. I mean, there's so many tiers, levels. Do you focus specifically, I mean, organic, of course, but so would there be the analytics involved in it? So what are you teaching them in regards to that whole area?
Yeah, so I don't consider SEO to really be its own thing. It's just a traffic channel that goes with all of the other traffic channels, and they have to work harmoniously for a campaign to be successful. So we will work on them. We really work on organic revenue. So we're going to work with them on the conversion path, conversion rate optimization, phone tracking, all of their analytics setup, all of their on-page content creation, social syndication, social signals, and just working on making content that converts people from visitors to customers, and then finding ways to continually scale and increase the flow of those net new customers.
You know, with all as fast as things are changing, on the internet, how hard is it for you guys to keep up with all this stuff, with all the changes as fast as they're coming?
Yeah, you know what, it's an interesting question. So my agency was just purchased by a larger agency in December. And it's the second time I've sold a marketing agency. And really this one, the reason for this deal was because there is an ever-changing landscape. They brought to the table a very large paid traffic team and a very large development team and data science team. So they took my team and rolled it into theirs, and it helped us to expand our reach and capabilities. I did not have the motivation to grow a large agency again. I had grown one once before. So being acquired made it easier for us to offer more services to our current customer base. So expanding to reach all of those different changing variables without having to reinvent the wheel or learn them again.
So to go from having your own company to being under someone else, how hard of an adjustment is that for you and your team?
Well, for my team, I don't think that it was too hard. I've sold 4 companies, so this isn't my first rodeo at it. And I go into the deals trying to get a more reasonable time management strategy out of them. So I'm not going to go into a deal to work more. I'm going to go into a deal to work less. And that's been ideal. So now I manage the relationships that I've built, and I work to generate revenue from those relationships. But I'm not even looking at campaign data anymore unless something gets stuck or a client's unhappy, which luckily hasn't happened. So I make my life easier through these types of deals, not harder.
Great. Now you mentioned relationships. That's interesting because are you starting to see the trend now to go back to more relationship-oriented business?
It's interesting that you call it a trend. I don't know that it ever went away, but I think it may be undervalued by many people. The biggest opportunities that we have to grow our business are through our relationships with CMS platforms, large-scale development organizations, people who have hundreds or thousands of their own clients on their technology or their services that don't do what we do. It makes it a lot easier to build one strong relationship and have access to tens or hundreds or potentially thousands of new customers than to have to continually be going out and generating cold traffic and trying to nurture people that have never heard of you into a large ticket service contract. So relationships have always been key for me since I got started in the industry in the 90s.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was in construction, and when I first started back in the 70s, 80s, probably up through maybe the mid 90s, it was very relationship oriented. I mean, these general contractors had the same subcontractors. They all worked together. They did well.
Oh, absolutely.
And then after in the late 80s, when everything kind of went down before the tech boom came up, the .com, it was all about the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship didn't matter. It was I need the cheapest price.
We see that. My wife owns a precast concrete company and a septic wastewater treatment company. And
Okay.
I started with her 3 years ago to launch an e-commerce business selling septic parts online. In fact, we just purchased septictank.com in Q4 of last year. And a big part of that is the distributorships for products in the septic industry. There are like 10 people that have the products that you want. And if you're not one of their distributors or part of that inner circle, it's really hard to get your hands on things that you need to sell. So relationships are key in that industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a hard time getting that thing up and running?
A little bit. I kind of consulted on the side for a year on that project. And it wasn't until I went into it a little bit heavier and started going to the conferences that I understood how interwoven those relationships were. I'd always get frustrated with the e-commerce team. I'm like, why aren't you adding more products? They're like, well, you can't get any. I'm like, that's just not possible. Then you go to a conference and you're like, this person will only sell to that person and that person won't sell to this person because they know that person, and your head just wants to explode.
Interesting. So do you have specific tools that you work with in regards to all this, or is it more in the whole organic side of it? Is it more training of the people who are involved with it? How does that work?
Because data is so important, the tools are critical. In 2015, I launched a platform called Infusion, which was really what the growth foundries who purchased us, they really wanted our software. So we built a technology platform that integrated all of the different tools that an SEO professional needs to use so that you only have one subscription and one set of data instead of 10 subscriptions and 10 sets of data. But some of those tools that we use to pull in data are SEMrush is a big part of what we do. A Local Viking, which is owned by the same people as Growth Foundry, is a big part of our success. And non-technology play, but I always like to drop them some credit, linksthatrank.com. They've really simplified a lot of our external SEO work, which can sometimes be clunky. So I give them a lot of credit. They're expensive, but they're worth every penny. Those are just a few off the top of my head. We can dive down deeper into like Places Scout and some of those other ones that people have never heard of, but those are some core ones.
So do you basically go in and say, looking at all this SEO, like the big umbrella picture of it, and go, hey, we need to develop something that does this. So you have a team that does the software development, all that stuff.
Yes, we have 12 full-time developers on our team at Growth Foundry. And really what we start with, and I think what keeps us ahead of the competition, is we don't care whether or not your website ranks. The last thing on our mind, even though I'm an SEO consultant, is ranking a website. We want to start with where are you generating revenue from and how are we going to do more of that? And if you're not generating any, how are your competitors doing that and how can we take their business? And that may be by ranking for a specific keyword, but it may not be. I think the SEO world in large has not caught up to the fact, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I was saying this in 2012, and a decade later, I'm still saying it, that you're getting hired to generate revenue, not rank a website. And until you figure that out, you're never going to build a good agency. You're never going to provide good service.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I think when the average person hears SEO, their mind is, I'm going to get my website to number one in the top 100. I'm at 3 million or something. I need to get it to under the 1 million or whatever. And I think that's what most people, if you said, what is SEO? I think that's what they'd tell you. I got to get my website ranked up higher.
Yeah, when someone asks me what I do, I always say ORO, Organic Revenue Optimization. To me, it's a subset of SEO, but we're here to help you make more revenue. If you don't want more revenue and you just want to rank, go hire someone from another country, pay them $200 a month. And then a year from now, when your website's crashed and you can't make any money, come back to us, pay our fees, and we'll get it done right.
There is that true, because I know, there's a couple of people that I speak to in regards to organic marketing, and they said, even if you're looking at, and we're going to go down to a basic kind of like me kind of person, not a big corporation, but even when it starts there, you can have on your Facebook 5,000 friends that won't mean a thing to what you're selling. And he said, get it down. You're better to have 1,000 people on there that are all interested in what you're selling than 5,000 of which 4,000 are not, and you're going to be lost in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say I could have 5,000 strangers or 10 interested parties, and I'll take the 10 all day long.
Absolutely.
So does the 80-20 rule work in SEO?
I think the 80-20 rule works in almost every aspect of business and life, whether it's from an input or output perspective. I think it can be applied to any reference point there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I've often found that if you're trying to strive for 100% of anything, you usually fall pretty short because you spend so much time doing it that you miss other opportunities. Get that 80% point and then move on to the next thing, or just scale from there.
What would you say, based on your experience, is the things that most people or most companies do wrong in SEO?
They tend to put a wall up between them and their potential customers. So the most successful clients that we're going to work with are the ones that want their phones to ring. So those are typically local businesses, healthcare organizations, physical therapists, and things like that. When they say, I don't want phone calls, I want people to fill out a form, that's when we'll just say no. That's not the way that the consumer wants to do business with you. Now, a subset, 80-20 rule. If I have a healthcare need and I don't know where to go, I'm probably going to call someone to see, can you fix my problem? I'm not going to fill out a form and wait for an email to come back. So we'll have that option for those that want to do that, but we need the ability to generate and track phone calls. So where do they go wrong? They make it hard for people to give them money. They don't want to turn on that cash register in their pocket. So until they do, we're probably, again, not the right person to work with them.
Well, yeah, speaking of phone calls, so, everything now is automated. It's so freaking hard to talk to a human. But I always like to be able to call somebody and somebody answer the phone, and you can say, hey, I need this. I need to find out about this. Okay, let me switch you over to so-and-so, rather than punch 1 for this, punch 47 for this, and punch 52 for this. Are the people that have actual real live humans in their business answering the phone, do they do better than the people with the automated?
Anywhere between 2 and 3 times better. So with my wife's business, it's now the largest septic company in the state of Ohio. It has 3,600 active customers, meaning that they have an annual subscription for services. And one of the big leveraging points on that was 2 years ago, we turned on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, live voice call center operators. And it's expensive, but every person that calls is going to get a human being 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not possible to leave anyone in our organization a voicemail. You have to talk to a human. And that's unheard of in this type of industry. And it's a level of customer service that you can start out for $200 a month. You can offer that. You can use a platform called answerconnect.com for $199. I think they might have raised their baseline price to $249 a month. But if you're providing services, man, go 24/7 live voice, and your customers will thank you, and your business will definitely grow.
Yeah, I totally, especially in a service business, because
Absolutely.
at 2 o'clock in the morning, when their septic tank stopped up, they got sewage up everywhere, and they call, we'll get a service guy, we'll contact the service guy, he'll call you back in 10 minutes. Instead of waiting, at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can call this number, leave a message, So, yeah, I know I was in the service. So it's very important that people know, call this number and you will get somebody to contact you. You will be able to talk and get your problem solved.
Yeah, nearly every service customer we work with, within 90 days of starting with us, turns on Answer Connect. We don't push it on them right out of the gate because it's kind of new to people and they get nervous. But when you put the tracking in place and you start showing them, like, you had 100 phone calls and you answered 7. Like, do you not want the money from the other 93? Let's turn this service on and let's start to ring that cash register. It becomes a lot easier when the data is slapping them in the face and saying, hey, why don't you like money?
That's so true. I find it so frustrating. I really, I mean, not that I should bring this up, but there is one one platform that you try to connect with, and even to find an email to connect with them is impossible. Never mind, there are no telephone numbers, and there's a few of those that are out there that are so difficult to connect. And it's almost as if they don't want to hear from you in a customer service status. But in order to correct things, whether it's customer service or whether it's sales, quite often you do want to speak to it, because if there's an extra question that needs to be answered, this texting back and forth, even the live chats, can be really frustrating because they're not getting what you're saying. You know,
no, they're not. You're either talking to a bot, you're talking to someone from another country, or worse is, and I have nothing, like, we have a huge team in other countries. I have absolutely nothing against leveraging talent and technology wherever it's suited, but they're told to read a script. They're not allowed to think whatsoever, and they get pigeonholed so bad that they just can't answer your question. The answer, I feel like, could be inside of them, and they just want to blurt it out, but they're not allowed to. Now, I will say this, that we have found that site chat does help those individuals that aren't ready to make a phone call ask that initial question to lead to a phone call. But if you have site chat instead of a phone call, that's not really serving people. And again, we're working mostly with multi-location local service businesses. This may not be the same for a software company or certain other types of businesses, but the types of customers we work with are going to lead with a phone call.
and you're right about the chats. They're really great for the simple ones that you don't want to wait 2 hours on the phone to just get a simple answer. That, I love it. But when it's something a little bit more complicated, I just get on the phone. I know that they try their best, but it doesn't work out most of the time. Yeah.
You know, from the a big word now is customer experience. And I'll say this, you know, a lot of people have they don't like Apple, but when, you know, if you go into an Apple store, you say, I need to get a new phone, you know, and they'll say, okay, they'll show you, they'll answer every question you have, and they'll sit there and they'll spend 3 hours with you. Any question you have about that phone, can you show me how to do this? Yes. Anything else I can help with? Well, what do I need to, and they'll spend 3 hours with you until you're happy, you're satisfied, and then they'll say, well, thank you very much. You know, and when you leave that store, you're going, man, that's great. I got my phone, I got it all set up. I know how to do this, I know how to do that. They transferred all my stuff, you know, and I think it's great. I think that customer experience, like in a situation like that, then rather here's your box of your phone. Good luck, have fun when you get home. Call 1-800-APPLE if you have any questions.
They spent a generation building that experience so they can charge 3 times as much for a device that does half as much as an Android phone. And I've got 2 iPhones right here, and I'm sitting here saying that an Android phone does more, but the experience.
Yeah, I do have to say, don't say that a lot of people don't like Apple. They're loving Apple all the more these days with Clubhouse. Trust me. I refuse. And I do have to say this story again, Roger. I thought, well, okay, I'll go on because all my friends are on there and check it out. Although I think there was a sign for me not to. I had an iPad, but I sold it because, you know, a Pro, because I wasn't using it. And then Clubhouse comes up. So I got out my little mini one, updated the version. I still can't get on Clubhouse because I'm what is it? I have the 12.5.1 and I need 13, the version, to get on it. And I thought, that's it. I'm out of here. It's a sign. Don't get on there. Don't get it.
That's an interesting platform.
Yeah, and I do think too, I believe that you would, beyond that, is that also the choosing of the platforms for SEO is important, not to overextend and to know where your target market is. I would imagine that's.
Yeah, absolutely. I experienced this earlier in my career and have had plenty of business coaches like ingrain this in my brain, that when you get one traffic source working, and never stop improving on it. Add others over time, but I think too often people get one to work and they're like, okay, I got SEO to work, now I'm gonna stop doing that and I'm gonna go master email marketing. Well, keep doing the one that works and slowly add a second and then a third over time, because you can always improve on that one traffic source. But it's very hard to become a master of 2, 3. And some people I see are wanting to do YouTube, Facebook, Google search, Google shopping, remarketing, SEO, social media. They come to you and they want to do all of that. And I'm like, well, pick one. Let's figure out which one will generate the most revenue the fastest, put the rest of the money back in your pocket. And when we got that one working, we'll do another.
Yeah, I think I've always, you talk about coaches, that's what they always said. Learn how to do one thing well, then go do this.
Yep.
It's kind of like, okay, this is on automatic now, so focus on this. And it's not really on automatic.
No, I don't know too many things that are on automatic. So real estate might be the closest thing when done right. But in marketing, nothing's really automatic. They call certain things marketing automation. And I was an early investor in HubSpot, a big fan of HubSpot, but it's not really automation. There's some triggers that make things happen. But if you're not constantly looking at the performance, the data, improving it, heck, making sure it even works all the time, you're really going to miss the boat.
Absolutely.
Plus, it's very time consuming doing all these 50 different things at one time as well.
Absolutely.
Particularly, I mean, the smaller you are, the harder it is too. I mean, the big corporations can hire people to work that, but that's one thing that's really important. If you're starting up your business, don't overextend yourself. And, you know.
Yeah, it's really important as a startup to pick a scalable traffic source, which often isn't search engine optimization for a startup. And more often it's something like Google AdWords, where if you can go in and figure out how to get one campaign working, you can control your budgets, you can control how fast you grow. You know the tangible end result because you know your cost per acquisition if you do it right. Search engine optimization, of course, may take time and is actually better for people that have what I would say is a dialed in lead flow from some other source. Even referral lead flow that comes through your website in some regard can be leveraged. But if you're starting out from square one, SEO is not the right choice for you. You've got to find a way to create a controllable, scalable lead flow first, which AdWords used to be Facebook. Facebook has gotten really, really hard over the last year. So I would stay with AdWords, or even YouTube videos have been a big hit for us.
Excellent.
Are YouTube videos, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on with YouTube now, censoring and all these different things. But, is that really a good revenue source for business?
So it is when done right, meaning getting a video with 1 million views so that you can make $200 or $300 a month isn't a revenue stream. But we worked with we're not working with them anymore, so I don't want to give them too much credit. But it was a plumbing company that came out with a new type of like sealant adhesive, and paid traffic to that video generated 1 million views over 18 months. And it cost around $20,000 to $25,000, but it generated mid 6 figures in revenue from product sales, just putting a link in there to the Amazon product for them to go buy it. So when done right, leveraging it to your call to action will work successfully.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Because
Something I hadn't really thought about is that, the video linked to the Amazon product.
Yep. Works great for that. I know a lot of big ticket coaches leverage that because it's one of the reasons why Clubhouse is so popular. When you talk and you're not like hiding behind a social media post and living a fake life, people can hear it in your voice, whether you know what you're talking about. They can see it in your eyes. They can see it in your body language. That's why videos work. That's why Clubhouse has been so popular. Although there is some backlash with the people on Clubhouse that are really good at inflection points, but really don't know what the heck they're talking about. I do see some of them getting called out more often, which is nice. The people that know what they're talking about are going to do better when they can be monitored from an expression standpoint. That's why video, Clubhouse, and things like that work.
Yeah, I think people tend to like face-to-face. Even if it's on Zoom, they feel safe because there's that distance between you. But, I think more people like being face-to-face for that reason you said, to see you, look at you, get your expressions. Are you genuine? So. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, it was interesting. I kept seeing articles about Zoom fatigue leading up to their quarterly report, which I think was yesterday, and then they hit with like 368% year-over-year growth. Like, I don't really think people have too much Zoom fatigue if they're growing like that still.
I do get that though. I mean, I think I almost did have it at one point, and it's not for the podcast. Those are fun because they're interactive. But there was one after another meeting with Zoom, and then you want to learn and you want to go on, and then like, when you're about, your fourth one in one day, yeah, that would do it.
Well, it's kind of like the webinar craze. The 1 or 2 hour webinar you sit through, and then there's another next one, and the next one is like, good Lord, it's just too much.
Yeah, I partnered with someone back in 2017 and 18 on a financial services newsletter, and he sold via those 1 hour, 2 hour webinars, and I'd be on him with them, and I'd be messaging him like, do we really need to go this long? He's like, yes, we need to go 52 minutes, and then we need to transfer into questions for at least 30 for this to convert at this point. The worst part was he was right every single time, but my ADD did not help me sit there comfortably for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've got you there. Yeah.
I was just thinking, and I guess it's a little bit of a plug for Podfest because I'm on it and I'm really enjoying it because the presentations are 30 minutes each. So I can sit there for my 30 minutes. So they do 20-minute presentation, 10-minute Q&A, on to the next one. So I just feel that I'm refreshed all the time. Like I'm not sitting there for an hour and a half, and it's not that it's all bad. I mean, they're really interesting, but it's exhausting. It can be exhausting sitting that long. So I had a hard time even in university, going through that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Roger, how can our listeners reach out to you?
Well, I'll give you guys a link. They can get my new book, Local SEO Secrets, came out about 2 weeks ago. We hit 20 different bestseller lists on Amazon within 72 hours.
Congratulations.
My fifth book, this one was, thank you. Had a lot better success out of the gate than the last ones. My last book before that did sell 10,000 copies, but that took about 2 years. So I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
But if they go to rcbryan.com, that's rcbryan.com, and I'll give you the link that you can maybe throw out someplace. Free, let's see, what is it? Local SEO book. They'll get a link. What we did is we took the book and we created a digital version for it. And I'm giving the digital version away absolutely free. So it doesn't cost you a nickel, a dime, a dollar, nothing. And you can go in, the entire written book has been turned into a course with videos. So you can go in and learn all of the top local SEO strategies from top local SEO professionals. That's usually the best way. You go in, get into the course. I'm in there answering questions. There's a link to our Facebook group in there. Or they can honestly just text me. My phone number is 202-738-6344. I don't answer that phone when it rings, but if you text me, I will respond, and often we'll end up hopping on a call. That's 202-738-6344.
Wow.
Excellent.
Great.
That is just wonderful. So we've got a free book from you. That's excellent. And I hope everybody takes advantage of it because I think it is part of our world of marketing now. SEO is it, and you can't get away from it. So thanks again. Thank you so much for all this information, Roger.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was great.
Okay. Well, we enjoyed having you. It was a pleasure to meet you. And hopefully we can have you on later, maybe in 6 months or so for a kind of a follow-up.
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, listeners, don't forget rcbryan.com. Get your free book. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Roger. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.